Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the General Lock number Lx253S 626 LL. That's important to note. LL is less latch. Even though this lock may not be less latch. And then Ansi. That's for the strike, and then Schlag, it says. It's probably going to be a reference to the strike plate, the Ansi strike plate. Now, this is yet another in a near countless amount of variety or options when it comes to imported door hardware, specifically a grade 2 lever lock. General imports these certainly from somewhere in Asia. I don't know where. There is no lack of options when it comes to imported commercial builders hardware. In my opinion, what happens is you're not buying the lock. If you're looking at a generic entry lock, what you're really purchasing is the value, the support behind it. You can buy an imported lock literally anywhere. But the question becomes does the company have them in stock? Is it a good value, and do they support their product? I don't do a lot of General Lock products because there are so many options. And I have relationships with other importers that I do business with as well. So I would say that collectively we do a lot of that work. But individually, of the individual companies that we can buy the same material from over and over again, none of it is in particular. But I can tell you that I've had good luck with General. I have, if they have an inventory in a particular city and I'm doing a job in that particular city, and the client wants a grade 2 lever, imported lock or an exit device or a door closer, I will definitely look at General because they do a good job at just getting the stuff shipped out. So that's what I'm driving at. We're not just really talking about, buying a lock, but it's everything behind it, because the lock itself is, let's just speak plainly, the lock itself is not necessarily that unique of a product, at least an imported one. Now, this lock is specifically less latch, so there is no latch bolt included with this lock, so be quite mindful of that. Less latch is what this is. Let's remove it from the packaging here. I can tell you that I'm initially impressed with the weight of the item. This does feel a little bit heavier than other grade 2 locks. Get it all pulled out here. Installation instructions on how to remove the lever, the strike plate. The cylinder is not installed. That may be a botheration to some people. Okay, I'm also initially impressed with the cylinder. That's clearly solid brass construction. That is not something that you can take for granted from every company who imports locks. So that's a plus right there. And I don't know that I've reviewed many General locks in the past, and if I have, it's probably not been many. So the point is, I hope that there is a point of some discovery that occurs on my behalf. I can tell you immediately that I'm impressed with that lever return spring. That's some good stuff right there. That comes back really nice. 137. Let's take a look and see. Yeah, this is shaping up to be one hell of a lock. Very good price, very good value on this lock. Good lever return action. Now, I would prefer that the cylinder was installed, and I'm going to install it for the client because, sure, some clients are like, oh, no problem, I can do that. I can repin a cylinder and things of that nature. But the majority of clients are going to say, this doesn't work. And then you're going to say, well, you know what, you're right. In the screw package, which we're going to go over, is going to have the cylinder removal tool. And this procedure is also documented, and it will be linked to down below. Non-clutch keyed lever installation instruction. Okay. So they don't really do a great job at telling us how to go about putting this on, but I will show you that now. Our cylinder removal tool, that black piece of wire, I'm going to leave it in the package and just push down on that spring-loaded tab, and then from there I can work that lever up and off. And what's happening there is that tab is what I just depressed. That's spring-loaded. You can see inside of there how that all moves. Okay, I'm going to insert my cylinder into the lever, and this does have a lever retaining support inside of it, which needs to come out. It's fit in there pretty tight. Excuse me one moment. Just going to use a flat slotted screwdriver just to get underneath the head of the lever retaining support and just pop that out, because that does need to come out. Okay. So then we're going to bring our cylinder. We'll just drop that in place, and I hold onto it by the tail piece and get the cylinder face seated. And then we're going to bring this back. Just going to push it down. That's all we're going to do. And that's going to hold that cylinder in place. Doesn't seem like it's an important piece of equipment, but I assure you that it is. What's happening is the top portion, we'll just take it out again so I can demonstrate. That this area here, the technical term for this is Bible. This is literally called the Bible, okay? And that tool is sitting, keeping us in place, keeping that cylinder from tipping. And you can easily move it when the cylinder is not installed, when the lever is not installed in the lock chassis, but once it's installed, it doesn't move. And if you can see down in there, you can see the shoulder of the lever support piece of black plastic is holding on to the edge of the Bible of the lock. So at this point, what we're going to do is we need to take a key, and that's a 6-pin Schlage C keyway, by the way. Insert that, just insert it, then you can kind of use it as a handle. You have to insert that down. And you want to jiggle it a little bit because right now, when I hold onto the cylinder, it's tipped up towards the top. When I jiggle it, I actually position it like this, and it will then go into the stem. I get that in there and I jiggle it. I'll push it down to where it stops. It won't go any further. At this point, you must rotate the key clockwise. Whoops. Bear with me. What should be happening is the lever turning the cylinder should be retracting the hub, but it's not. Okay. So what needs to happen is the tailpiece needs to engage into that vertical slot in the back there, and if it doesn't, then there's no way to ultimately depress this tab. With that cylinder in place, this will no longer depress. When I pull that out, it will fully depress. What's happening is the tailpiece from the cylinder is preventing that spring-loaded tab from depressing in. When there's nothing in there, I can push that tab. But when I bring the cylinder in, the tailpiece now sits like this, and now I can't push that in. When the cylinder's not present, I can push it. Or when I rotate the cylinder, I can then move that, and that's the trouble that I'm having. So what I'm doing is inserting the cylinder inside of there without the lever installed to make sure that it works, and it certainly does. But I just have to discover why we're not getting this down far enough. And sometimes what will rectify the issue is simply getting the cylinder pushed into the lever a little bit, like I have it there. So let's study that. I'm going to push that through a little bit so I can get a little more clearance, and obviously my support came out. So this part I don't like about this lock. I can tell you exactly that I'm not loving this part, because this should not fight me getting it back together. And it's fighting me. It could also be operator error, so when all else fails, what do? Read the instructions. Okay, so step one, if a thumb turn exists, make sure it's unlocked. We have our lock unlocked. Insert the key into the outside lever and turn it 90 degrees clockwise. Push the outside lever onto the chassis until the latch engages the lever. Turn the key counterclockwise to position it and position it. Turn the key counterclockwise to the position it was and let go of the retractor. Okay, I've never done anything like this. So what they're saying is, lever, turn it 90 degrees. Okay, great. This is the retractor. They want me to literally hold that depressed. Push in the outside. Okay. I don't see why that matters. Insert the key into the outside lever, turn it 90 degrees, push the outside lever onto the chassis until the catch engages the lever. Press the retractor as illustrated. I'll be dipped. That worked perfectly. Okay. Once you know how it works, it's actually quite elegant. Okay, neat. Let's try that again. Going to remove the lever, as I did before. Rotate the key. Got it rotated, held rotated 90 degrees. My lever removal tool goes in. Okay, got that. So at this point, we installed the cylinder as I demonstrated earlier. Step 2 is to push the retractor in. Let's go to step 3. Push and turn clockwise 90 degrees. I'm going to then leave that. I'm going to pick up my chassis. With my thumb, I'm going to push in the retractor, and I'm going to hold it pushed in. That's the retractor, or the retracting hub. I'm going to push that in and hold it retracted. Insert the key. Insert the key into the outside lever, turn it 90 degrees, push the lever onto the chassis until the catch engages the lever, which is what just happened. Turn the key counterclockwise and let the retractor go. That works perfectly. That's great. It's actually very elegant. I would say that my ignorance as to how this lock works or goes together is a beneficial thing that I've learned how this works. I didn't expect this to work any differently. I've not personally, of all the imported locks I've seen, I've never seen one that works like this. I would definitely argue that this is a superior system as to what I'm accustomed to, because it went back to it went back together very well. The cylinder should be installed though, because while I don't believe it's difficult, what I just did, I also have decades of experience of saying, okay, why doesn't this work? And then again, if all else fails, I'm willing to read the instructions. So I would want them to install it, but you know, the instructions are pretty clear. I probably would have done step 3, then do step 2, and then go right to step 4. Rotate that key 90 degrees, put it down, pick up your lock, depress the retractor with your thumb, put that whole piece on there, turn it counterclockwise 90 degree, remove your thumb. And you hear it click, and that clicking is that spring-loaded tab going into the slot that's in the back of the lever, is what that is. So great, that's good stuff. I like it, is the bottom line. So continuing on with our tour, this is what they call a 253. It's a 53. That means it's a triple function. It can be a passage, okay? It can be an office function where you push that in, outside lever is locked. This is nice. Here's another nice thing I like about it. When I push the button in, the outside's rigid. When I exit, it's going to pop that button out. Now it's a passage again. But also what I like is when I push that, when I push my button, it's locked. You know what? Let's actually... When I push in the retractor, it pops the button out. So the reason that is nice is because if you have a scenario where this lock is installed on a bathroom door and you push the button and then pull it closed, it would be nice if it were to pop back open. However, this lock does not work that way. Depressing the retractor would get it to pop, but when the latch bolt goes in, it doesn't depress the retractor. So that problem could still exist. When I push it and then turn it, now this lock is what would be considered a storeroom lock. So it can be a entrance function, passage function, or storeroom function. When that's pushed and turned, free egress on the inside always locked on the outside. Okay, that's nice. That works well. And again, this is LL, less latch, and the description of this lock absolutely states less latch. So be mindful if you're ordering this lock, you must already have a latch bolt. Keys will be included. Now that ANSI, the ANSI in the part number, that means this 4 7/8 strike is what that means. 4 7/8 tall. The width of the strike, the overall width, about 1 7/8 inches. Up over here, it's about 1 1/4 inches. But strikes are measured from the center line of the screw holes to the edge of the lip. And this is going to be about 1 1/4 inches, which is the standard size. Now, there's a formula for determining lip length. And you'll need to be mindful that if you have a special condition, to determine the lip length that you need. If you had unusually thick casing or a deep inset, you'll need an extended lip. On the opposite side of that, if you had a pair of doors, let's say hollow metal doors, and you had a flat astragal applied to the pull side of the active door, which isn't slotted for the strike lip, this will not work. That astragal is going to hit that lip and the door won't close. So you would need, assuming 1 3/4 thick doors, you would need a lip length of 7/8. So it'd be a very short lip. I just am doing a job now for a national, possibly global company that is in the business of transporting money. Just think of probably the first company name that comes to mind, I suppose. And the job is literally a high security electrified lock, pair of metal doors, welded flat astragal, and the lock manufacturer cannot do a 7/8 lip length on their strike. So the option to the client was discard the astragal, slot the astragal for the strike lip, or have your client obviously change the lock, or have your client, the installer, take that lip and grind it down so that the astragal will work. And the least inelegant way that it was decided to handle that was to simply slot the astragal so that when the astragal comes and closes, it'll have a slot there that the lip can just penetrate through, and that's what was decided on. So also in the packaging, we'll have our screw package. We're going to have the installation instructions for putting the lever on, which proved to be quite crucial. And then we have just the lock installation instructions as well. And let's switch now and pull up. There is a link below this video to these instructions. Let's pull those up and let's switch to the camera view and take a look at the installation of this material. Let's do that next. Okay, now this is indeed the item that we are looking at, and our extended description down here, what they call an S-series lever design, less latch, Schl C keyway, it's 6-pin, that Ansi strike, grade 2, cylindrical lock, grade 2, entry with a push turn button, that again means entrance, storeroom, and passage, a triple function, satin chrome, 26D, lever. That is the standard classic, you know, handicap compliant straight lever with a return to within ½ inch of the door face. It is a single cylinder lock, meaning there's not a cylinder on both sides of the door. Through bolt pattern, 2 5/8 center at 12 and 6 o'clock. And we'll look at the template in a moment. We'll go over that as well. Now, the link to the installation instructions are linked to down below this video, and here they are. And this is basically what is included in the packaging. So, having discovered that there was quite an important thing I did not know about this lock, we're going to scrutinize this a little bit closer. So they identify all of the parts that we're looking at here, and that's important because as you read into the installation instructions, you know, they're going to refer to by these names: inside lever, outside rose, screw post, things of that nature. Tools that are recommended to get this installed, assuming that you have to drill the hole in the door: 2 1/8 inch hole saw, a 1 inch drill bit, a 1 15/16 drill bit. I don't know what that's for. I'm pretty sure that's meant to say 15/6. Oh, I see what they're doing. Quantity 1, 2 1/8, 1 inch, 1 5/16, 1 chisel. Sure. And if you're just removing and replacing, then really all you need, you'll need more than the Phillips head screwdriver. You'll need that lever return tool to get that inside lever off. But after that, you shouldn't need too much more. So if you're doing a new installation, steps 1 through 4 will apply. And there is on page 2 the template that's down below. If you're doing a new installation, this is not the lock to buy. This lock is less latch, so be mindful of that. This template is looking at the folded installation instructions included with the lock, is indeed at the bottom of page 2. You could certainly, as they indicate in the installation instructions that I have with the lock, indicate that you're to cut that along this line up here and then literally apply it to the door. And you can certainly do that. Fold over the edge. The center of your lock is going to be based on, the center on the edge of the door will be based on the thickness of the door. Where you put your mark, 1 3/4 thick door. This lock is compatible for 1 3/8 to 2 inch thick doors, so that's good to know. If you are doing a new installation, what we're looking at here is a 2 3/8 and a 2 3/4 back set. Just a moment on back set. Back set is actually defined as the edge of the door to the center of the hole. You know, as they're showing here. Edge of the door to the center of the hole, 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. However, we have to be mindful that you have either a square edge door or a beveled edge door, and back set is actually referenced from here. Now, if you have a square edge door, it doesn't matter what side you put the template on. You fold it over, you mark your hole, you drill your hole, you're in good shape. But this is problematic if you're using that template, because the 2 3/8 or 2 3/4 is literally measured from the center of the thickness, and that's nice because it makes it a universal definition independent of the door thickness. If it was always 2 3/4 from here over to the hole, okay, and you had an unusual door thickness like 1 3/8 or 3 inch, well, just in the range of what this will work, 1 3/8 to 2 inch, those holes are not going to match up very well. So you have to be mindful to compensate for what you're working on. If it was me, I wouldn't use the paper template, and I would generally measure on the big side about 2 13/16, and then on the small side about 2 11/16. I'm compensating for the bevel. This bevel is actually defined from this right here to this right here. That bevel is defined as 1/8 in 2. For every 2 inches in door thickness, that's 1/8 of an inch. So you're going to be possibly just less than 1/8 of an inch. That's also 3 degree is the dimension, is the actual degree of that, should that be of interest to you. So the point of the exercise is, when you are prepping that hole, be sure to be mindful of where exactly you're going to place, because you don't want to drill a hole here and then you drill a hole here and the lock doesn't fit right. And while it's probably not a big deal on this lock, it's a big deal to not have your holes in the proper location, because these 5/16 holes, these through holes, they are pretty particular in terms of being in the right location. So you want to make sure you get all that correct. Other templates will give an additional dashed line on either side to basically refer you to inside or outside or high side or low side of a bevel door. This doesn't. Just be mindful of that. Now, I'm not going to go into the details, the step-by-step of how to prep your wood door, or your hollow metal door for that matter, in this video. However, if you would like for me to go over that with you, I have prepped both metal doors and wood doors countless times for hardware like this and would be happy to assist. This lock actually features optional screw posts. Many, possibly even most grade 2 cylindrical levers will permit you to remove the posts, the through bolt posts that go through at 12 and 6. I would very much discourage you from removing those. The only time that people remove them is when they don't want to or can't drill those 5/16 holes through the door. Those posts help keep the chassis where it belongs vertically because of all the rotational force that's applied to the lever. So I would avoid that at all costs. So this lock, I'm looking at the lock on the desk here, and we're going to take a closer look at the adjustment for door thickness that they have there, which means I have to remove the interior lever and the interior rose and mounting plate. Well, actually just the rose. The mounting plate is still attached to the door, and as I insert my lever return tool through the hole as shown, actually they need you to do that with disassembling the exterior rose, not the interior rose, in order to confirm the accuracy of your door thickness. And as I look at my lock in my hand, it appears to be close to 1 3/4, but it's not exactly 1 3/4. So install removable through bolts. This is going to be the exterior side where they mount onto. However, for adjusting door thickness, remove outside mounting plate toward cylindrical case. Put the catch tool into the allocated position of outside mounting plate as the illustrating below. Rotate outside mounting plate to required door thickness. Okay, so what they're saying is the outside mounting plate is actually threaded. In order to get to that, we have to remove the exterior altogether. So let's switch back to the, we're going to switch back now to the camera view so that we can take a much closer look exactly at what they're wanting us to do to get that adjusted, because it ought to come adjusted for 1 3/4, but it looks like it's a bit shy on 1 3/4, so let's do that. Okay, so we're going to continue on with the adjustment that we're looking at. So step 6, so page 1 was prepping the door. Step 5 is remove the inside trim. Let's just remove the inside trim. This tool is important. Really, any tool that will act like this is important, except the length of this is going to come into play in step 7. So back into the access hole to the spring-loaded tab. Okay, I believe I have that. There we go. That comes off. The inside rosette will come off. That's stainless steel. That inside spring chassis, and inside of here is where you're going to find your springs, your lever return springs. So that little notch there is going to mate with that prep there. I can get that in there and demonstrate how that works. So we've removed the inside plate. Now, pulling off the mounting plate, there is an arrow right here. That's important because that is to go towards the lock edge of the door, and it can only go in. It can only go back. It can only go back on one way. There's only one arrow. Okay. We're going to pull that off. Now, adjusting the door thickness, you'll see in step 7 where they refer to the information that is on the hub of the lock. And they want you to, adjust that by rotating this inside plate. But in order to do that, we've got to pull all this off. The issue is, I don't know what it's set for from the factory. It's got to be 1 3/4. So let's take this off. And by now I'll be a pro at putting it back on. Okay. Oh, put it right, snapped it right back on. Okay. We'll leave that intact. All of that will come off. And you'll notice that one of the support tubes, screw posts, came off because those can come off. And you'll end up taking those off or they'll fall off. At this point, now you can see how this is a threaded plate. Okay. So what we're to do now, according to the installation instructions, is install our catch tool so that it buries itself down, and where it comes into play is our door thickness. And I would say, yeah, that's basically set at 1 3/4. It's actually a bit closer to 1 9/16. So in my installation, what I'm doing is I'm going to back that off a revolution or 2, and we'll test it again. You can see now that our pin is a bit closer. I'll back it off. A little bit more. And yeah, you know, right at the tip of 1 3/4, I'm going to put it back one more revolution. This plate has the same arrow as well. It's not the same plate as the other one, but that'll be towards the latch. So at this point, our screw posts have to go back in. And I think what I'll do is I'll hold it this way. And now our large assembly needs to come in. I'm not concerned about that falling. Do need to back that out a little bit to get our screw post back in. And it fits in there. And what's nice is these screw posts actually fit inside of those two holes here and the one right here. So that makes those really durable. So that goes back together well. So we've adjusted this lock for an 1 3/4 thick door. Probably would have worked just fine out of the box, but it did seem about an 1/8 of an inch shy. So we're going to put this back on. And if I recall correctly how to do it, rotate it 90 degrees first. We need to depress the retractor, push it all the way down. Okay. I'll always tug on that outside trim to make sure that it works. Don't want it to fall off in my hand. So we've got the lock now adjusted. Then we can bring our inside plate back on, and that again, that arrow must go towards the latch bolt. Okay. Then we can bring our spring cage assembly in. We can bring our rosette on. We can bring our inside lever on. And that snapped and clicked together. That works really well. It's put back together. We've confirmed it's adjusted. Always test the operation of the key as well. We have no problem with that whatsoever. Good. So let's switch back to the screen view where we can continue reviewing the installation instructions. If you'll leave those pulled up, that would be handy because we're going to continue to check those. Okay, so we've gone over step 7 of adjusting the door thickness, and assuming that you have, of course, your through bolt holes, which I would, again, very much recommend that you install it with that. You'll have your holes at 12 and 6. Install outside lever assembly on the door. First of all, you have to put the latch bolt in. Don't do anything until the latch bolt's already installed, and then bring the retracting hub and force it to mate with the latch bolt, assuming you bought a lock that includes a latch bolt, just like this. It has to look like this, or the latch won't retract properly, is the bottom line. Make sure tail of latch engaging with retractor correctly as shown. What would be really nice is, if you recall earlier where I said the pressing of the latch does not force the button, the push button on the inside. That's because of the design of the tailpiece. What would be nice is if the tailpiece was designed, here's the, just crudely, it's kind of what the latch bolt looks like. Okay. So that little retractor that comes out has, its feature is like this. Okay. And then, of course, our retracting hub sits in here. So when the latch, when the retracting hub, when the levers get turned, the retracting hub moves in this direction. But when the latch is depressed alone and moves in this direction, this feature just moves in this direction. What would be nice is if this was like this, so that when it moved in this direction, it would make that button pop out. That would be, I don't know that that's how this would be solved, but it occurs to me that would solve the problem, making it a better functioning lock. As you can tell, I'm grasping at things to say negative about the lock. I don't have a lot of negative things. It should come from the factory absolutely adjusted for 1 3/4, and it should clearly state that in that section. It should say, do not, if your door is 1 3/4, you don't need to adjust a thing. A lot of installation instructions on imported hardware are written by people or someone whose first language isn't English, so some of the translation is odd. You have to kind of think of what the intent is of the person who wrote the installation instructions. So install mounting plate. So now your outside is, your latch is in, your outside is on. Bring your mounting plate, and you're going to have 2 screws that will go down through here, and they're going to go right to the chassis. Okay, so there are actually 2 screws that hold the plate to the chassis, and then there are 2 screws that go through the inside Rosa liner into the support tubes, or spacer tubes, whatever they call them. And let's switch back to the camera view so we can investigate that. And this part of the video will also allow us to go through the screw package as well.
I'm not sure I understand.
They're listening. That comes off. That comes off. Now, these holes right here, here and here, that's where the 2 smaller screws are going to go. So we have 2 screws for the strike. I'm going to put those back in the bag. We have 2 screws. We have 4 screws. I don't know why there are 4. I can only think that that's a mistake. There are only supposed to be 2. These 2 short little screws are going to go through our plate. Maybe that's why. Aha. Aha, okay. So I think the problem is our problem is we've got the wrong, too many screws. That screw will go through and into the housing. The problem is, yeah, that's fine. That's an awfully long screw, but it'll also handle a thicker door. So as we get that rotated all the way down, another screw will go here. So that's why there are 4 of those screws. And what's nice about these screws is that they have this unique feature to the underside of the head, where it's like a ratcheting or clutch style feature, where you will feel your screwdriver give you feedback when you are really tightening the screw. And you'll know when it's gone far enough. And that's also, in my opinion, acts as a way to keep the screw in place, because it reduces the surface area from the underside of the head that it's making contact with. I can see no difference between those 4 screws. So after that's installed, you're then going to bring your inside Rosa liner. Yeah, you're going to use those longer screws as well. And those will go right through there and into your support hub is where those are going to go. So this lock is very solidly screwed through the door, or to itself through the door, I should say. Now these little short screws, these were the ones that I would know to use for the plate to the chassis of the lock, but I do not see a reference to those screws anywhere. So it could be that there was a design change and these screw packages are still being used, or there were, maybe there are two types of these locks that are out there in the world, and until they're all flushed out of their system, I'm just completely guessing as to what the case is with that. So you're going to have a couple of screws left over, those two short little guys. That looks like that's an odd thread. Appears to have a quarter, it could be a quarter 28, something like that. Well, it'd probably be metric since this is made in Asia. After you get the inside rose aligner on, you'll just put your rosette on, like I did. Push that on, put your lever on, and you're finished. And that's all of the installation instructions. If you continue to scroll through, you're going to go back to how to put the outside lever on, which we needed to demonstrate. I needed to learn. Step 8B for classroom function, standard cylinder, and SFIC core prep. So what they're talking about in step 8B is allow me to attempt to distill it. A classroom lock is a lock where you put the key in, it's locked. You put the key in, you rotate it 360 degrees, and you take the key out. Now it's unlocked. Put the key in, rotate it the opposite direction, 360 degrees, take it out, it's locked. Because of the way that you can orient the tailpiece on the back of the cylinder and how the slot that it times into can be timed inside of the lock, you'll either get it installed correctly or you'll get it installed incorrectly. So if you put the key in, and you can turn it one way and it'll retract the latch, and you can turn it the other way and get some operation out of it, but you can never pull it out and reverse its function from locked to unlocked and unlocked to locked, you know that it's timed incorrectly. This is not a classroom function, so it won't behave like that on the inside of this chassis. But if you have trouble with getting it operating correctly on a classroom, it's the timing of the tailpiece. You'll need to take that out, and you'll need to you're going to need to get a small screwdriver down into the lock chassis and time it 180 degrees is what you would do. And that is not only a concern on classroom locks, but on deadbolts as well. You'll find that when you put your key in a deadbolt and you throw the bolt and then you bring the key back, well, the bolt comes back with you. It's just timed incorrectly. There is a video that I've made illustrating that problem. So on that last page, they do talk about reinstall instructions, and they are just talking about how to when you look at the reinstall instructions, right side middle of the last page, which is probably page 3, you'll see that that slot is vertical. You need to make that horizontal. So that will need to come horizontal. The issue is, though, is it should be in all locks except the possibility of that classroom. But be mindful. The important part is when you are putting a lock together, you test it. You pull on it. You make sure that it works correctly. You check the keys. You make sure the levers are on correctly and that it works the way that it's intended to work. And if it doesn't, something's wrong. And then you do like I did. When all else fails, read the installation instructions. Or call us with your order number and we'll walk you through it. We've gone over everything that's included with the lock. We're going to put our pin tool back in the screw package. Let's finish up this video by switching to the camera view to show you some supporting documentation for the General Lock product line. Now the lock set that we're looking at, again, is here on this page that we see. And what I'd like to call to your attention is the link to the manufacturer's page, where you can pull that up. And you'll see not only all of the General Lock products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the current product catalog. And it's that product catalog that we can take a look at. And you'll be able to review all things hardware from General Lock. It's going to be primarily lock sets, exit devices, door closers, clearly cylinders, deadbolts, hinges, but they have other material as well. a bit of a wide-ranging selection. They do have, as you can see, aluminum storefront overhead closers, hardware clearly padlocks, okay, safes, in-wall safe. People doing new construction generally want to gather one of these during the framing of the walls. I don't know if they have that latch bolt listed separately. Yeah. I would think that they do, but I don't see that they do. Selling a latch bolt alone would be I think an important decision whether or not to invest in the series, because if you can't buy the latch bolts, you know, makes it hard to maintain the locks. So I do not see in our Lx253 Lx253. Yeah, don't see latch bolts alone in here at all. Anyway, that catalog will be helpful in terms of seeing the rest of their material. And I can tell you this, the other good thing about General is that their material is generally available in stock and is so across the country. So lead times are pretty short in my experience of this material. Let's wrap up this video on camera. So I believe that we learned that this General Lx253 is a good quality lock, even having to go through the learning curve of how to put that lever on. But once you know how it works pretty nice. The adjusting of the lock, I'm sure that would have worked on an 1 3/4 door, but it was definitely 1 9/16 range, so I wanted to make sure that went to the client correctly. And we certainly know that it works, and it works pretty well in addition to all of that. So I would not hesitate to suggest that you consider their material. It's certainly very attractively priced. And, you know, the logic is, do I want to spend $480 on a grade 1 domestic lock, or do I want to just buy 5 of these and have them on hand? It might make sense to buy 5 of those and have them on hand. It's just a grade 2 lock is tested to 500,000 cycles. A grade 1 lock is tested to 1,000,000 cycles. And General makes grade 1 locks. It really depends on the application. I have people who, it's that national coffee chain, the one not from Seattle. When they build those new, they literally put on locks like this on those bathroom doors. And yeah, they break. Every year, every 2 years, they need to be replaced. Whereas when you put something grade 1, they just don't break in general. So you have to decide if you want the hassle of the maintenance, if you want to pay for that on the back end, or if you want to pay on the front end and get the higher caliber lock. It comes back 6/2 the other as far as I'm concerned. And what would drive your decision is what's the proper application. What does the application call for that? You could have a class 1 commercial building where everything is grade 1, but the closet inside of the sales manager's office doesn't need to be grade 1. That's, grade 2. So be mindful. Select the proper lock. This is not a bad lock. It's got a nice look to it as well. Other finishes, I think I noticed oil rub bronze and polished brass. Any questions on the General Lx253 grade 2 cylindrical lever lock or any other General product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.